You've never bought a ticket from this airline. You've probably never seen one of their planes at the airport. But there's a real chance they've transported the team you root for, the politician you voted for, or even the phone you're using right now. While American, Delta, and United burn billions trying to survive, there's an entire empire operating in the shadows of commercial aviation, a $28 billion sector growing 7% annually, faster than traditional carriers. And at the center of this invisible universe, a company called Global Crossing Airlines tripled its fleet and quadrupled its revenue in just 24 months. How is this possible? If you're also passionate about the world of aviation, consider subscribing to the channel and supporting our team. To understand this story, we need to go back to 2020. The pandemic devastated commercial aviation. Over 2,000 routes were permanently canceled in the United States alone between 2020 and 2023. The major carriers lost billions. American Airlines posted a $2.6 billion loss. United spent $25 billion renewing its fleet just to stay competitive. But here's the thing almost nobody noticed. While the majors were bleeding money, another business model was flourishing. Ultra charters, companies that rent aircraft on demand for specific clients, operated in a completely different universe. No fixed routes, no competition for slots at congested airports, no fare wars, and mainly, no need to fly if there's no paying customer. The numbers are impressive. The global charter market is already worth $28 billion and grows consistently 7% per year. Over 70% of these operations happen completely off the public radar. You won't find these flights on airline websites. Many don't even appear identified on flight radar. And here's the detail that changes everything. While commercial airlines fight for margins of 2 to 5%, charter operations work with margins reaching 30% on sports and government missions. A single international charter flight can cost between $80,000 and $150,000, 10 times the value of all commercial tickets for the same route combined. Now, you might be thinking, but who pays these absurd amounts for a flight? The answer will surprise you. Professional teams from all sports, NBA, NFL, MLB, MLS, NHL, national soccer teams, bands on world tours, companies moving executives for urgent negotiations, governments transporting diplomats, and even humanitarian operations evacuating civilians from conflict zones. What makes this interesting is that the model completely inverts the logic of commercial aviation. A traditional airline needs to operate unprofitable routes to maintain its network, compete with 50 other companies for the same route, follow strict regulations on schedules and frequency, keep expensive aircraft flying half-empty to comply with slot agreements. An ultra charter? It only flies when someone pays full price, period. Think of it this way. When the Miami Heat needs to go from Miami to Los Angeles for a playoff game, they can't depend on commercial flights. They need flexible schedules, privacy, space for 2-meter-tall athletes, and absolute certainty they'll arrive on time. They pay $120,000 for a charter flight, and for a franchise worth $3 billion, that's basic operational investment. The problem is, this model remained relatively small and fragmented for decades, until recently. Enter the case of Global Crossing Airlines, or Global X as it's known in the sector. In 2022, Global X operated with 4 Airbus A320 aircraft. It was a respectable but small charter operator. Nothing indicated it was about to become one of the most aggressive growth cases in modern aviation. Today, late 2024, Global X has over 15 aircraft, a mix of A320s and A321s, and plans to reach 50 planes by 2027. That's a growth of over 1,100% in 5 years. But the truly shocking numbers are in revenue. In 2022, Global X earned $97.1 million. In 2024, that number jumped to $223.8 million. That's roughly 130% growth in 24 months. For comparison, United grew about 12% in the same period. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Global X isn't just flying soccer teams. It operates a diversified portfolio that includes sports contracts,
ACMI operations, complete rental of crew, maintenance, insurance, and aircraft to other airlines that need extra capacity temporarily. Government contracts, urgent cargo, aircraft parts, medical equipment, electronic components that need to cross the continent in 4 hours, and even humanitarian evacuations, repatriation of American citizens from conflict zones. Speaking of which, about 40% of Global X's revenue comes from a single type of operation most people don't even know exists: wet leasing. Wet leasing is when an airline rents not just the plane, but complete crew, insurance, and maintenance. It's like aviation Uber, but for airlines. When Spirit needs more planes in summer for Caribbean routes, it doesn't buy new aircraft. It calls companies like Global X and rents everything for 3 months. The margin on these operations? Between 25 and 35% depending on urgency and contract duration. But the truly fascinating part, and slightly disturbing, are the operations that happen completely out of the spotlight. Did you know there are hundreds of charter flights happening every day in the United States that don't appear with public identification on flight radar? Many operate under generic or blocked codes. Why? Because clients pay for discretion. If a Secretary of State travels for sensitive negotiations, they don't go on commercial flights. Discreet charter with encrypted communication equipment. Transports under NDA. High-level athletes frequently sign non-disclosure agreements about their movements. Teams don't want opponents knowing when they're arriving in a city for a decisive game. National security operations. Transfers of protected witnesses, movement of federal agents, and even transport of sensitive evidence. The problem is this opacity also generates controversies. Global X, for example, operates contracts with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, for deportation flights. Activists harshly criticize these operations. The company argues they're legal federal government contracts representing stable revenue. These flights pay between $40,000 and $80,000 each. For a company in accelerated growth, that's millions in guaranteed annual revenue. Global X isn't the only one. There are dozens of operators doing the same. But its growing size places it increasingly at the center of debate. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Does this model represent an existential threat to traditional commercial airlines? The short answer is probably not for regular passengers, but definitely yes for specific lucrative segments. Here's why. Charters are systematically colonizing the most profitable niches of aviation. For pilots, charter companies can offer more flexible conditions and often competitive salaries. While Delta struggles with pilot shortages for unprofitable regional routes, Global X hires pilots to fly only profitable on-demand routes. The use of secondary airports is another advantageous characteristic. Charters don't need to fight for slots at JFK or LAX. They use smaller airports with 60% lower costs and less congestion. And another point is maintenance. Smaller and more homogeneous fleets, Global X uses only Airbus A320 family, have much more efficient maintenance costs than majors with 10 different aircraft types. And here's the point major airlines truly fear. The charter model is starting to capture contracts that were previously exclusive to majors. When United does wet lease with Global X, it's essentially admitting it's cheaper to rent planes from them than operate our own. This isn't just outsourcing, it's recognition that the charter business model can be structurally superior for certain types of operations.
To understand why, think about the incentives. A commercial airline needs to fly even with 60% occupancy to maintain its network. A charter only needs positive margin on each individual flight. There's no unprofitable route subsidizing another profitable one. But there are enormous risks in this growth. The first is regulation. The more these companies grow and become visible, the more regulatory attention they attract. If they start competing directly with commercial airlines on public routes, they could lose regulatory advantages. The second point is scale. The model works magnificently with 15, 20 aircraft. But does it work with 100? With 200? At some point, you need a large corporate headquarters, robust HR department, complex systems, and you lose the agility that gave you advantage. And the third and most concerning is contract dependence. If a large government contract isn't renewed, it can knock down 15% of revenue overnight. Ultimately, what we're witnessing isn't the end of traditional commercial aviation, but the emergence of a parallel ecosystem that may be structurally more efficient for certain types of operations. Global X and its competitors won't replace Delta. They don't want to fly you from New York to Orlando for $89. They want to fly 180 people willing to pay $80,000 collectively for the privilege of traveling exactly when they need, with discretion and total flexibility. And the market is proving there are enough clients, sports teams, governments, companies, celebrities, willing to pay that price to sustain a $28 billion empire growing faster than commercial aviation. What makes this story fascinating is that all this happened while media and public focused on Boeing versus Airbus, American versus Delta. The real disruption was happening in discrete hangars, secondary airports, under confidential contracts that never generated headlines. The question isn't whether this model will grow. It's already growing rapidly. The question is, when it gets too big to remain invisible, how will the system react? And for now, while you debate which airline has the best mileage program, there's an entire fleet of white, logoless planes transporting the world's most important people and profiting more per flight than any commercial airline ever dreamed possible.